Chapter 1. The Deal. I had a problem. Unfortunately, my solution was currently sitting across from me in the student center, drinking iced coffee and looking way too entertained by my suffering. No. Lucas Hart didn't even look up from his phone. I frowned. You don't know what I'm going to ask. I know enough. You haven't heard the proposal. Whatever it is, the answer is no. I leaned back in my chair and stared at him. Most people on campus liked me. Some people admired me. A few people were annoyingly obsessed with me. Lucas tolerated me. Barely. Which was exactly why I trusted him. Lucas was openly gay, painfully smart, and completely immune to my charm. According to him, I didn't have any charm. I disagreed. Strongly. You got my texts, right? I asked. I got all 18 of them. 18 isn't that many. It is when they're sent in under an hour. Fair point. I ignored it. The student center buzzed with noise around us. Conversations. Laughter. Music playing somewhere in the distance. And every few minutes, somebody looked in my direction. That was another problem. People noticed me. A lot. Normally, that was harmless. Lately, it was exhausting. I rubbed a hand over my face. Lucas watched me for a second. You look stressed. I am stressed. Why? I pointed vaguely around the room. Because apparently existing has become a full-time job. He snorted. What does that even mean? It means people keep asking me out. The sympathy on his face lasted exactly 0 seconds. Oh no, I glared. Don't start. You poor thing. I'm serious. So am I. I dropped my head onto the table. Lucas laughed. The jerk. It's getting ridiculous, I muttered. Then tell them you're not interested. I do. Try harder. I lifted my head. I have an idea. The second those words left my mouth, Lucas looked concerned. As he should have. My ideas had a history. Most of them weren't great. Some of them had nearly gotten me expelled. Technically only once. Absolutely not, Lucas said. You don't even know what it is. I know it came from you. That's rude. Experience has made me cautious. I grinned. That was his first mistake. Because the moment Lucas saw that grin, he knew I wasn't giving up. His expression immediately darkened. No. Lucas. No. Hear me out. No. Fake date me. Silence. Complete silence. Lucas blinked. Then blinked again. I watched realization hit him. Then horror. Then disbelief. Then something that looked suspiciously like the urge to throw his drink at me. You've lost your mind. That's dramatic. You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend. Exactly. You're straight. I shrugged. So? His mouth literally fell open. Actually fell open. I was impressed. That's your response? Yes. That's a terrible response. Pointed at him. See? This is why I picked you. Lucas stared. I don't like where this conversation is going. You're believable. I'm not helping you. You haven't heard the full plan. I don't need to. I leaned forward. Come on. No. It would solve everything. No. Just think about it. No. Please. Lucas froze. The word had slipped out before I could stop it. For some reason, that got his attention. His expression softened slightly. Only slightly. Which was still progress. I decided to exploit it immediately. You owe me. His eyes narrowed. I absolutely do not. I carried you home after your birthday party. I was unconscious. Exactly. You can't collect favors from unconscious people. Says who? Basic morality. I grinned. Lucas rolled his eyes. But he didn't leave. That was the important part. Because whenever Lucas truly hated one of my ideas, he walked away. The fact that he was still sitting there meant he was thinking. Which meant I had a chance. A small one. Terrible one. But a chance. And for some reason, that felt strangely important. Chapter 2. One condition. I knew I was winning the moment Lucas stopped saying no. He wasn't saying yes either. But the silence had changed. Instead of looking horrified, he looked annoyed. Annoyed was progress. I sat across from him trying not to smile. Lucas noticed anyway. Don't. Don't what? Look pleased. I can't help it. You absolutely can. I grinned. He sighed. You're unbearable. I've been told that. Repeatedly, I assume. Mostly by you. Lucas looked away to hide a smile. Unfortunately for him, I caught it. A dangerous amount of confidence immediately entered my body. So you're considering it. I'm considering how much money I'd need to disappear. That's not a no. His glare returned. There it was. I was starting to miss it. Wait, no, that was weird. Ignore that. Lucas took a long drink from his coffee. Thinking. I waited. Patiently. Mostly. How long? He finally asked. I nearly jumped out of my chair. That wasn't a rejection. That was a negotiation. I don't know. Ethan. A month? Lucas looked horrified. Absolutely not. 3 weeks. No. 2. He thought about it. My heart did something stupid. Then he spoke. 1 week. 1 week. Take it or leave it. That wasn't enough. Not even close. I opened my mouth to argue. Lucas pointed a finger at me. 1 week. I closed my mouth. Then opened it again. 10 days. Ethan. 9. 1 week. 8. His stare could have killed people. I immediately held up my hands. Okay, fine. 1 week. Lucas looked suspicious, like he expected a trap. To be fair, he probably should have. 1 week, he repeated. 1 week. And we establish rules. Rules. That sounded reasonable. I hated it already. What kind of rules? Lucas started counting on his fingers. No flirting. I laughed. You're hilarious. I'm serious. So am I. Ethan. What? You're naturally flirty. I looked offended. I am not. You absolutely are. Name one example. You winked at a librarian. She gave me extra borrowing time. Exactly. I paused. Okay. That one wasn't helping my case. Lucas continued. No flirting. Fine. No using me to make other people jealous. Would never happen. Lie. Okay, maybe once. His glare sharpened. I haven't even agreed yet. Right? Sorry. No surprise kisses. I choked. What? No surprise kisses. Why would I? Lucas gave me a look. A very specific look. The kind usually reserved for children and criminals. Unfortunately, I qualified as both. Fine. No surprise kisses. Good. And if anyone asks, we're keeping things private. I frowned. Why? Because I'd like to survive the experience. Fair. Actually, very fair. Our campus loved gossip. By tomorrow morning, people would probably be planning our wedding. Lucas set his coffee down. One last condition. Something about his tone made me straighten. What? His expression became serious. More serious than I'd seen all afternoon. If this starts becoming weird, we stop. I blinked. Weird. You know what I mean. Actually, I didn't. Not really. But something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. For a second, neither of us spoke. The noise of the student center faded into the background. People moved around us. Conversations continued. But suddenly it felt like there were only 2 people in the room. Me and Lucas, watching me carefully, waiting for an answer. Okay, I said quietly. The tension disappeared immediately. Lucas nodded. Okay. Then he held out his hand. I stared. What? Deal. Oh, right. A handshake. Normal people did that. I reached across the table. The second our hands touched, something strange happened. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. Just a brief moment where neither of us pulled away. A second too long. Maybe 2. Lucas noticed it at the same time I did, because his eyes flicked up to mine. And suddenly neither of us seemed sure why we were still holding on. My pulse stumbled. What the hell was that? Lucas let go first. Fast. Too fast. Like he'd touched something hot. Interesting. Very interesting. He immediately stood. We start tomorrow. I blinked. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. That's fast. You wanted this. True. Very true. But now that it was happening, I felt oddly nervous, which made absolutely no sense. This was fake. Completely fake. A simple arrangement between friends. Nothing more. Lucas grabbed his backpack, then paused. Ethan. Yeah. If you make me regret this, I will destroy you. I smiled. That's fair. His eyes narrowed. The smile only got bigger. For some reason, that seemed to make him flustered. And for some reason, realizing that made my day significantly better. Lucas groaned, then walked away. I watched him leave, watched him disappear into the crowd, watched far longer than necessary. Only when he vanished from sight did I realize I was still smiling, which was weird, very weird. I told myself it was because the plan had worked. I definitely wasn't smiling because of Lucas' heart. Definitely not. Chapter 3, Boyfriend Duties. The first rumor appeared at 8:12 a.m. I knew the exact time because my phone nearly exploded. Mia, what did you do? Jack, dude. Jack, dude. Jack. Answer your phone. I stared at the messages while walking toward campus. Then another notification appeared. MIA? There is a photo. A photo? I opened the campus gossip page. Immediately regretted it. There, in blurry but recognizable quality, was a picture of me and Lucas sitting together in the student center yesterday. The caption read, "Basketball captain Ethan Walker spotted getting suspiciously cozy with Lucas Hart. New couple? 2,000 likes. Overnight." I closed the app, opened it again. The likes had increased. What the hell? Good morning. I nearly dropped my phone. Lucas stood beside me, looking annoyingly calm. Don't do that. You looked busy. I pointed at my screen. Have you seen this? Yes. And what? That's your reaction? Lucas shrugged. It's a gossip page. They think we're dating. They're supposed to. I hated how reasonable that sounded. Lucas started walking. I followed automatically. You're taking this disturbingly well. I expected it. Already. Ethan. He gave me a look. You asked the most gossip-prone campus in existence to believe we're dating. Fair. Very fair. I still didn't like it. As we crossed the quad, students kept glancing at us. Some whispered. Others openly stared. One girl gasped. Actually gasped. I felt like a zoo animal. Lucas looked completely unfazed. How are you so calm? I spent 3 years being openly gay. That shut me up. Good point. A very good point. Lucas glanced sideways. You'll survive. I don't know. You're dramatic. I prefer expressive. Nobody prefers expressive. I smiled. Lucas immediately looked away. Interesting. Lately he'd been doing that a lot. Almost every time I smiled directly at him. I wasn't sure why, but I was starting to notice. We reached the humanities building. Lucas stopped. I stopped too. For a moment neither of us moved. Then a familiar voice called my name. Ethan. I turned, and immediately saw trouble. Natalie. Sweet. Friendly. Persistent. Very persistent. The moment she spotted me, she hurried over. Then she noticed Lucas. Then she noticed how close we were standing. Her smile faltered. Oh. Lucas visibly fought the urge to escape. Coward. Natalie. I said. Hey. She looked between us. Then back at me. Then back at Lucas. The poor girl was trying to solve a puzzle. Unfortunately, we were the puzzle. So, she said slowly. So, I agreed. Very helpful. Natalie narrowed her eyes. Are the rumors true? Beside me, Lucas became suspiciously interested in a nearby tree. Traitor. I glanced at him. He refused to help. Fine. Fine. I could handle this. Yeah. I said. The word felt strange. Simple. Small. But strange. Natalie's eyes widened. Oh. A weird guilt hit me. I hadn't realized she'd actually liked me. The realization made me feel awful. Before I could say anything else, Lucas stepped forward. Just slightly. Not enough for most people to notice. Enough for me to notice. Interesting. Very interesting. Natalie definitely noticed. Her gaze dropped between us. Then she sighed. Well, a pause. Then surprisingly, she smiled. A genuine smile. Good for you. I blinked. Wait, really? Of course really. She laughed. You looked miserable every time someone asked you out. Okay, that was fair. Painfully fair. Natalie shook her head. Then looked at Lucas. Take care of him. Lucas looked startled. Trust me. She pointed at me. He's an idiot. I gasped. Natalie laughed and walked away before I could defend myself. I watched her leave, then turned to Lucas. That was rude. It was accurate. You didn't defend me. Because it was accurate. I stared. Lucas stared back, then unexpectedly smiled. A real smile. Not one of his tiny smirks. A genuine smile. For a second, my brain completely stopped working. The smile disappeared almost immediately, but the damage was done. Because now I couldn't stop thinking about it. Great. Fantastic. Exactly what I needed. A new problem. Lucas started walking again. I followed. Mostly because my legs remembered how. The rest of me was still busy replaying that smile. And for the first time since this ridiculous plan began, a dangerous thought slipped into my head. Maybe pretending to date Lucas wasn't going to be the difficult part. Maybe the difficult part was going to be remembering it was pretend. Chapter 4, The First Touch. By the end of the week, everyone believed we were dating. Everyone. Professors, classmates, the barista who worked at the coffee shop across campus, a random delivery driver who had somehow learned my entire life story. The fake relationship was a terrifying success, which should have made me happy. Instead, it made me nervous, because the better we got at pretending, the less it felt like pretending. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. You're staring. I blinked. Lucas looked up from his textbook. We were sitting in the library, supposedly studying. I had not read a single page in 20 minutes. I wasn't staring. You absolutely were. I looked away. Immediately, like a guilty criminal. Lucas sighed. You're bad at lying. That's ironic. What does that mean? Nothing. Lucas narrowed his eyes. I pretended to focus on my notes. Neither of us believed that. A few minutes later, Lucas kicked my shoe under the table. Focus. I am focused. You've been reading the same paragraph for 10 minutes. I looked down. He was right. Unfortunately, I hate that you notice things. I know. His smile appeared for a second, then disappeared. Lately, I was starting to look for those smiles, which felt dangerous. Very dangerous. Before I could think about that further, my phone buzzed. A message from Mia. MIA? Emergency. MIA? Come to the student union. MIA right now. I showed the text to Lucas. He immediately looked concerned. That can't be good. It never is. 10 minutes later, we discovered the emergency. Mia wanted help carrying decorations for a charity event. I wanted new friends. You said it was urgent. It is urgent. She pointed at several heavy boxes. Those aren't moving themselves. I stared. Lucas laughed. Actually laughed. The traitor. For the next hour, we carried supplies across the student union. Tables, boxes, banners. Enough equipment to build a small city. By the end of it, everyone was exhausted. Especially Mia. She collapsed into a chair dramatically. I'm never volunteering again. You say that every year. And every year I mean it. A loud crash interrupted us. Everyone turned. One of the stacked decoration boxes was tipping over. Directly toward Mia. Everything happened fast. Lucas moved first. I moved second. The box wasn't huge, but it was heavy enough to hurt. Lucas grabbed Mia's chair. I grabbed Lucas. Without thinking, my hand closed around his wrist. Hard. Stopping him before he stepped into the falling mess. The box hit the floor with a loud bang. Paper decorations exploded everywhere. Silence followed. For one strange second, nobody moved, including me, because I was still holding Lucas's wrist. And suddenly I was very aware of it. The warmth of his skin. The steady pulse beneath my fingers. The fact that neither of us had let go. Lucas looked down at my hand, then up at me. Neither of us spoke. The room seemed quieter than it should have been. Like everything else had faded away. My heart was beating too fast. Way too fast. And judging by the look on Lucas's face, he knew it. That realization made things worse. Much worse. Ethan. His voice was quiet. Just my name. Nothing else. Still. Felt important. I released him immediately. Like I'd been burned. Sorry. The word came out awkward. Lucas blinked. Then looked away first. It's fine. Fine. Right? Everything was fine. Completely normal. Nothing weird happening here. Not at all. Mia stood, oblivious to the crisis currently occurring inside my head. You two okay? Yep. My answer came way too fast. Lucas answered at the exact same time. Fine. Mia looked suspicious. Very suspicious. Then a slow smile appeared. Oh no. I knew that smile. I'd seen it before. It meant she had noticed something. Something dangerous. Interesting, she said. What's interesting? Nothing. You're lying. She grinned. I definitely am. I hated everything. The rest of the afternoon passed normally. At least on the outside. On the inside. Disaster. Because every time I looked at Lucas, I remembered the feeling of his wrist beneath my hand. Every time our eyes met, I looked away first. And somehow that was even worse. By evening, we were walking back across campus together. The sun was setting. The pathways were quieter. Most students had already gone home. For once, neither of us was talking, which wasn't normal. Lucas finally broke the silence. Today was weird. I nearly walked into a tree. What? He glanced at me, then looked away. Nothing. No. I pointed. You said something. Lucas sighed. Forget it. I won't. I know. A pause. Then another. The tension between us felt different tonight. Softer. Closer. More dangerous. Lucas shoved his hands into his pockets. Good night, Ethan. Before I could answer, he turned and headed toward his dorm. Just like that. Gone. I watched him leave. Again. For some reason, I always watched him leave. And for the first time, a realization settled heavily in my chest. The problem wasn't the fake relationship anymore. The problem was that every day I spent with Lucas, it became harder to remember why I'd wanted it to be fake in the first place. Chapter 5. Jealousy is a terrible teacher. I spent the entire weekend avoiding Lucas. Not intentionally. At least that was the lie I told myself. The truth was much worse. Every time I thought about seeing him, I remembered the moment in the student union. My hand around his wrist. The way he'd looked at me afterward. The fact that I couldn't stop thinking about it. So naturally, I did what any mature college student would do. Panicked. Monday arrived far too quickly. I was halfway across campus when my phone buzzed. Lucas. Are you alive? I stared at the message. Lucas. Mia says you've been hiding. Lucas. Which means you're either dying or being dramatic. I immediately typed back. Me. I'm not hiding. 3 dots appeared. Then. Lucas. Sure. I hated how well he knew me. By lunchtime, I had successfully avoided him for almost 3 days. That record lasted approximately 40 seconds. Because the moment I walked into the cafeteria, I saw him. Lucas sat near the windows. A textbook open in front of him. Coffee beside his elbow. Sunlight catching in his dark hair. My stomach did something weird. Again. I was beginning to dislike my stomach. Then someone sat across from him. A guy. Tall. Good-looking. Confident. And immediately smiling at Lucas. I stopped walking. The guy said something. Lucas laughed. Laughed. Not a polite smile. Not a tiny smirk. A real laugh. The kind I usually had to work for. Something unpleasant twisted in my chest. What was that? I didn't like it. At all. I told myself to keep walking. Instead, I kept staring. The guy leaned closer. Lucas didn't move away. The unpleasant feeling got worse. Much worse. You're glaring. I nearly jumped. Mia appeared beside me carrying a tray. When did you get here? When you started looking like you wanted to challenge someone to a duel. I looked back toward Lucas. The guy was still there, still smiling, still talking, still making Lucas laugh. Who's that? Mia followed my gaze, then immediately grinned. Oh, I didn't like that grin. Who is he? Why? Just asking. You sound jealous. I choked. What? Mia's smile widened. Dangerously. Interesting. I'm not jealous. Sure. I'm not. Then stop staring. I immediately looked away. Unfortunately, that only made her laugh. The traitor. 5 minutes later, I finally gave up and walked over. Purely because I was curious. Obviously. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. Lucas noticed me first. His face brightened. Actually brightened. The weird feeling in my chest instantly disappeared. Which was concerning. Very concerning. Ethan. The smile stayed. I tried not to look too pleased about that. Failed completely. The other guy turned. Hey! Lucas gestured toward him. This is Oliver. Then toward me. Ethan. Oliver immediately recognized me. Most people did. Basketball captain. Unfortunately. Oliver laughed. I didn't. Because he was still sitting way too close to Lucas. Not that I was paying attention. Obviously. The conversation continued. Or at least it tried to. Because every time Oliver spoke to Lucas, I found myself interrupting. Accidentally. Mostly. Probably. At one point Lucas actually kicked my leg under the table. Hard. I looked at him. He looked back. The message was clear. Behave. I ignored it. Naturally. After another 10 minutes, Oliver checked his phone. Damn. He stood. I have class. Lucas nodded. I'll see you later. See you later? The words landed harder than they should have. Oliver smiled. Then left. The second he disappeared, Lucas turned to me. What was that? I blinked. What was what? That. Very specific. Very accusing. I decided to play dumb. Unfortunately, Lucas knew me. You're impossible. I have no idea what you're talking about. You interrupted him 6 times. Did I? Yes. Maybe he was boring. Lucas stared. Then laughed. Actually laughed. Again. I hated how much I liked being the reason for that. You're unbelievable. I leaned back in my chair. So who is he? Lucas immediately looked suspicious. A friend. Just a friend. His eyebrow lifted. Slowly. Dangerously. And suddenly I realized what I'd said. Oops. Lucas crossed his arms. The smile tugging at his mouth looked far too satisfied. Why? No reason. Ethan. No reason. You're jealous. The word hit me like a truck. I laughed. Too quickly. Too loudly. Terrible mistake. Lucas's smile grew. Oh my God. I'm not jealous. You are. I'm not. You absolutely are. I opened my mouth. Then closed it. Because for the first time I wasn't completely sure. The silence stretched. Lucas watched me. Waiting. My pulse sped up. The answer should have been easy. It should have been obvious. So why wasn't it? Why had seeing Oliver with him bothered me so much? Why had I spent 10 minutes staring across the cafeteria? Why had I felt relieved when Lucas smiled at me? The questions piled up. One after another. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted the answers. Lucas's expression softened. Just slightly. The teasing disappeared. Replaced by something gentler. Something that made my chest feel tight. You're thinking too hard. Maybe. But not hard enough. Because as I looked at him sitting across from me, one truth became impossible to ignore. I didn't like seeing Lucas with someone else. And that realization scared me far more than jealousy ever could. Chapter 6. The question I couldn't answer. After the cafeteria incident, I avoided Mia. Not Lucas. Just Mia. Because Lucas only suspected things. Mia looked certain. And that was much more dangerous. Unfortunately, avoiding Mia was impossible. She found me after basketball practice. Naturally. Hey! I groaned. No. I haven't said anything yet. You don't have to. Mia fell into step beside me. Her smile immediately made me nervous. "How's Lucas?" I nearly walked into a wall. What kind of question is that? A normal one. It doesn't sound normal. Interesting. There it is. There what is? The thing you do. Mia laughed. I hated that laugh. It usually meant she was about to ruin my day. You talk about him differently. I looked away. No, I don't. You do. I don't. You absolutely do. I sped up. She matched my pace, like some kind of persistent nightmare. Leave me alone. Never. I sighed dramatically. Mia seemed encouraged by this, which felt unfair. Then she asked the worst possible question. When was the last time you went a full day without thinking about him? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out, because I genuinely didn't know. Mia saw my expression and immediately looked victorious. Oh, no. Oh, stop that. Oh, wow. I hated everything. Fortunately, my phone buzzed. An escape. A beautiful escape. I checked the screen, then immediately wished I hadn't. Lucas. Need a ride to the bookstore. Lucas. My car won't start. Lucas. Try not to make this weird. I stared at the final message, then at Mia, then back at my phone. Mia's grin became terrifying. Go. I wasn't asking permission. Sure. I left before she could say anything else. 30 minutes later, I pulled into the bookstore parking lot. Lucas was waiting outside. The moment he saw my car, he waved. A simple gesture. Nothing special. Yet somehow it improved my mood immediately. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Lucas climbed into the passenger seat. Thanks. Your car still dead? Very. That's unfortunate. It really is. He settled into his seat. Comfortable. Relaxed. Like being alone with me wasn't a big deal. Meanwhile, I was suddenly aware of everything. The way his shoulder brushed the seat. The sound of his voice. The faint scent of coffee lingering on his jacket. This was getting concerning. Fast. You okay? I nearly swerved. What? You look distracted. I'm driving. That's not an answer. I focused very hard on the road. Lucas stared, then shook his head. You're weird lately. The problem was that he wasn't wrong. I was weird lately, and I knew exactly why. I just didn't know what to do about it. The bookstore trip took longer than expected, mostly because Lucas couldn't make decisions, which was apparently a shocking discovery. Just pick one. I am. You've been comparing the same two books for 15 minutes. They're different. They look identical. Lucas looked offended. I laughed. His eyes narrowed. Then unexpectedly he smiled. There it was again. That smile. The one that kept ruining my ability to think. You're annoying. People keep saying that. Maybe listen. No. The smile widened. And suddenly everything felt easy. Natural. Like this was exactly where I was supposed to be. The realization hit me so hard that I almost stopped walking. Because friends didn't think like that. Did they? I wasn't sure anymore. The ride back was quieter. Comfortable. The kind of silence that only existed between people who genuinely enjoyed being around each other. The sunset painted the streets gold. Lucas rested his head against the window, watching the city pass by. For some reason, I couldn't stop looking at him. You're doing it again. I nearly choked. Doing what? Staring. Damn it. Lucas laughed softly. I groaned. This is embarrassing. A little. Thanks. You're welcome. I shook my head. Lucas smiled out the window. Neither of us spoke for a minute. Then he asked quietly, Can I ask you something? The tone immediately caught my attention. Sure. Lucas hesitated, which was unusual. Very unusual. Then finally, Why did you choose me? I froze. There it was. The question. The one I'd been avoiding since the beginning. Why Lucas? Not because he was believable. Not because he was convenient. Not because of the fake relationship. The real reason. The honest one. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Because suddenly I wasn't sure I understood the answer myself. Lucas waited. Patient. quiet, giving me every chance to tell the truth. But the truth felt too big, too complicated, too dangerous. I don't know, I admitted. For the first time in my life, it wasn't a lie, because somewhere along the way, the answer had changed. And that scared me more than anything. Lucas looked at me for a long moment, then slowly nodded, like he understood something I didn't. The rest of the drive passed in silence. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt like standing on the edge of something neither of us was ready to name. Yet, and as I watched Lucas disappear into his dorm building that night, I realized one thing with absolute certainty. I no longer wanted our week to end. And I had a feeling that was going to become a problem. Chapter 7. Not pretending. The problem with realizing you like someone is that suddenly everything becomes evidence. Every smile, every text, every glance, every stupid little interaction your brain had ignored before. Now, I noticed all of it, which was a disaster, because Lucas texted me constantly. Not romantic things, just normal things, memes, complaints about homework, pictures of terrible cafeteria food. The problem was that I looked forward to every single message. And that felt dangerous. Very dangerous. I was halfway through practice when my phone buzzed. Coach immediately blew his whistle. Walker. I froze. Everyone on the team looked at me. Phone. Right. The phone I had stupidly checked in the middle of practice. My mistake. I muttered an apology. The team laughed, especially Jack, the traitor. The second practice ended. I checked the message. Lucas. Important question. I immediately replied. Me what? 3 dots appeared. Then, Lucas. Is cereal soup? I stared. Me. You interrupted practice for this? Lucas. Answer the question. Me no. Lucas. Coward. I smiled despite myself. Jack appeared beside me. Unfortunately, you're smiling at your phone. I immediately put it away. Too late. Jack had already seen enough. His eyes widened. Oh my God. No. Oh my God. Stop. You're down bad. I hated that phrase, mostly because it felt alarmingly accurate. I'm leaving. You like him. I said I'm leaving. Jack laughed so hard I considered pushing him into traffic. Not seriously. Mostly. By evening, I was still annoyed. Jack. At myself. At the universe. Especially the universe. Because it kept putting Lucas in my path. Case in point, the moment I entered the coffee shop near campus. There he was, sitting by the window, reading, looking unfairly attractive for someone just drinking coffee. My mood improved instantly, which was another problem. Lucas looked up, then smiled when he saw me. That smile. Again. Every single time. Hey! Hey! I sat across from him automatically. Neither of us questioned it. That probably should have concerned me. Instead, it felt normal, comfortable, like I'd been doing it forever. Lucas closed his book. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe the reason this felt so complicated wasn't because I was confused. Maybe it was because I already knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Chapter 8. The end of the deal. I didn't answer Lucas's question. Not that night. Not the next day either. Cowardly? Absolutely. But every time I tried to put my feelings into words, my brain short-circuited. So I did what I did best. I avoided the conversation and hoped the universe would fix it for me. The universe, unfortunately, had other plans. 3 days later, our fake relationship officially ended. At least according to the agreement. 1 week. That was the deal. 1 stupid week. I hated whoever had suggested that. Unfortunately, that person was me. The realization hit the moment I woke up. Today was the last day. After today, there would be no excuse. No pretending. No reason to text him first. No reason to sit beside him. No reason to walk him home. The thought made my chest feel strangely hollow. I spent the entire morning in a terrible mood. Jack noticed immediately. You look like someone stole your dog. I don't have a dog. You look like someone stole your hypothetical dog. I ignored him. He followed me anyway. naturally. So, no. So, I said no. This is about Lucas. I nearly walked into a lamppost. Jack's grin became unbearable. I knew it. You know nothing. I know you're miserable. Unfortunately, that part was true. By afternoon, the feeling had only gotten worse. Every time my phone buzzed, I checked it. Every time it wasn't Lucas, I felt disappointed, which was pathetic. Extremely pathetic. I was contemplating my life choices when a message finally appeared. Lucas. Coffee? Just one word. Nothing special. Yet somehow my heart immediately sped up. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Me on my way. The coffee shop was crowded. Apparently everyone on campus had decided to exist in the same location. I spotted Lucas near the window, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe the reason this felt so complicated wasn't because I was confused. Maybe it was because I already knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to say it out loud. Chapter 8. The end of the deal. I didn't answer Lucas's question. Not that night. Not the next day either. Cowardly? Absolutely. But every time I tried to put my feelings into words, my brain short-circuited. So I did what I did best. I avoided the conversation and hoped the universe would fix it for me. The universe, unfortunately, had other plans. 3 days later, our fake relationship officially ended. At least according to the agreement. 1 week. That was the deal. 1 stupid week. I hated whoever had suggested that. Unfortunately, that person was me. The realization hit the moment I woke up. Today was the last day. After today, there would be no excuse. No pretending. No reason to text him first. No reason to sit beside him. No reason to walk him home. The thought made my chest feel strangely hollow. I spent the entire morning in a terrible mood. Jack noticed immediately. You look like someone stole your dog. I don't have a dog. You look like someone stole your hypothetical dog. I ignored him. He followed me anyway, naturally. So, no. So, I said no. This is about Lucas. I nearly walked into a lamppost. Jack's grin became unbearable. I knew it. You know nothing. I know you're miserable. Unfortunately, that part was true. By afternoon, the feeling had only gotten worse. Every time my phone buzzed, I checked it. Every time it wasn't Lucas, I felt disappointed, which was pathetic. Extremely pathetic. I was contemplating my life choices when a message finally appeared. Lucas. Coffee? Just one word. Nothing special. Yet somehow my heart immediately sped up. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Me on my way. The coffee shop was crowded. Apparently everyone on campus had decided to exist in the same location. I spotted Lucas near the window. My usual seat across from him was empty. Waiting. The sight made something warm settle in my chest. Then I remembered what day it was, and the warmth disappeared. Lucas noticed the change immediately. You okay? I sat down. Yeah. Terrible lie. Lucas knew it too. His eyes narrowed. Ethan. I'm fine. You're a bad liar. I sighed. He wasn't wrong. Lucas wrapped both hands around his coffee cup, thinking. Then finally, today's the last day. There it was. The thing neither of us wanted to say. Out loud. I stared at the table. Yeah. A pause. Then another. Neither of us seemed to know what came next. For the first time since I'd met Lucas, conversation felt difficult. Not because we had nothing to say, because we had too much. And none of it was easy. Eventually Lucas laughed softly. A sad laugh. One I'd never heard before. Remember when you begged me to do this? I smiled despite myself. You said no 17 times. 18. Right? Lucas shook his head. I should have trusted my instincts. Why? His gaze met mine, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Because there was something in his eyes. Something I'd never seen before. Or maybe something I'd been refusing to see. Because this got complicated. The words landed between us. Heavy. Dangerous. True. I looked away first. Because if I didn't, I might say something reckless. Something honest. The silence stretched. Outside, students walked past the windows. Cars rolled through the street. Life continued, yet it felt like the entire world had narrowed to this table. This moment, this person. Lucas finally stood. I should go. Panic hit me instantly. Sharp, unexpected, wrong. Because suddenly this felt like goodbye. Not just to the fake relationship, to something bigger, something I wasn't ready to lose. Lucas grabbed his backpack, then hesitated, just for a second, as if waiting. For what? For me to say something? For me to stop him? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. If I let him walk away now, I would regret it. Maybe forever. My pulse thundered in my ears. Lucas took a step back, then another, and suddenly I was on my feet. Lucas. He stopped. The entire coffee shop seemed to disappear. His attention settled completely on me. Waiting. My mouth went dry. This was it. The moment. The truth I'd been running from for weeks. The truth that had followed me through every conversation, every text, every smile. I liked him. More than liked him. Enough that losing him hurt. Enough that watching him walk away felt unbearable. Enough that I didn't want this to end. Not now. Maybe not ever. The realization finally became impossible to ignore. Lucas waited. Patient. Hopeful. Terrified. Exactly how I felt. I took a breath. Then another. And for the first time I chose honesty. Don't go. The words came out quiet. But in the sudden silence, they felt loud. Lucas froze. Neither of us moved. Neither of us looked away. And for the first time since this ridiculous arrangement began, there was nothing fake left between us. Only the truth. And neither of us knew what would happen next. Chapter 9. Say it. Lucas didn't leave. He just stood there, backpack hanging from one shoulder, coffee shop noise buzzing faintly around us, and looked at me. My heart was beating so hard it felt painful. Because now that I'd stopped him, I had a new problem. I actually had to explain myself. Great, fantastic, terrible idea. Lucas seemed to realize exactly what was happening. Because despite the tension, the corner of his mouth twitched. You know, he said softly, this would be a lot more convincing if you looked less terrified. I let out a nervous laugh. Not helping. Sorry. He wasn't sorry. Not even a little. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Lucas slowly sat back down. And somehow that simple action made everything feel even more real. Because he had stayed. Because he wanted to stay. I sat down too. My hands suddenly felt awkward. What were hands supposed to do in emotional crises? Nobody taught that in school. Lucas rested his elbows on the table, watching me carefully, waiting. I swallowed. This is hard. I know. You seem suspiciously calm. I'm not calm. For the first time, I noticed the way he was twisting the sleeve of his jacket. A nervous habit. I had never seen him do that before. The discovery startled me. Because Lucas was nervous too. Somehow that helped. A little. I keep trying to figure out when things changed. Lucas stayed quiet, letting me talk. I thought this was supposed to be easy. A small laugh escaped me. It was supposed to solve a problem. Instead it created one. Exactly. Lucas smiled faintly. The sight nearly destroyed my ability to form sentences. Again, I really needed to stop having that reaction. I kept telling myself I was overthinking everything. I looked down at the table, then back at him. But every time something good happened, I wanted to tell you about it. His expression softened. And every time something bad happened, I wanted to talk to you. The smile disappeared completely now, replaced by something gentler, something that made my chest ache. I looked for your messages. My voice came out quieter. I looked for you. Lucas took a slow breath, but didn't interrupt, didn't rescue me, didn't make this easier, which was fair. I had made him wait long enough. I got jealous. His eyebrow lifted. Really? Pointed at him. Don't. A laugh escaped him. I couldn't help smiling too. You absolutely enjoyed that. I absolutely did. You're awful. I know. For a second, the tension loosened. Just enough for me to breathe. Then it returned. Stronger than before. Because there was still one thing left to say. The most important thing. The thing I'd spent weeks avoiding. Lucas knew it too. I could see it in his eyes. The waiting. The hope. The fear. I took a deep breath. Then another. And finally forced myself to stop hiding. I don't want this to end. The words settled between us. Simple. Honest. Terrifying. Lucas looked away briefly, like he needed a second to process them. When he looked back, his eyes were brighter. Good. Just one word. Yet it felt like the world shifting beneath my feet. Good. Good. His smile returned. Small. Careful. Beautiful. I don't want it to end either. For a moment I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything except stare at him. Because somehow the thing I'd been afraid of hearing was also the thing I'd wanted most. Lucas laughed softly. There he goes again. What? The staring. I groaned. He smiled wider. And suddenly it felt easy to smile back. Easy to breathe. Easy to exist. The fear that had been sitting in my chest for weeks finally began to fade. Not completely, but enough. Enough to let me say the next part. The truth. The whole truth. I like you. The words came out almost embarrassingly quiet. Yet Lucas heard them. Every single one. His expression softened immediately. And for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely speechless. A rare achievement. I felt oddly proud. Then he laughed once, shaking his head. What? You really are an idiot. I blinked. Excuse me? Lucas leaned back in his chair, smiling in that way that always ruined my concentration. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for you to figure that out? I stared, then stared some more, then pointed accusingly. You knew. Ethan. His look said everything. Apparently everyone had known. Everyone except me. Wonderful. That's humiliating. A little. I dropped my head onto the table. Lucas laughed. The sound was warm, affectionate, and somehow that made the embarrassment worth it. A few seconds later, I felt something nudge my arm. I looked up. Lucas had moved his hand closer across the table. Not touching, just there. An invitation. A choice. Neither of us said anything. Neither of us needed to. For the first time, there were no fake rules. No fake relationship. No pretending. Just two people who had somehow stumbled into something real. And as I looked at Lucas smiling across the table, one thought settled quietly into place. For the first time since this all began, I wasn't afraid of the truth. I was looking forward to it. Chapter 10. Officially. The worst part about confessing your feelings to someone? The aftermath. Not because it was awkward, because everyone suddenly became unbearable. Especially Mia. Oh, look who finally figured it out. I regretted telling her immediately. It took you long enough, she continued. I'm leaving. You always say that. I stopped walking, because she was right, which somehow made it worse. Cross campus, Lucas was laughing. At me, traitor. 3 days had passed since the coffee shop. 3 days since we'd admitted our feelings. 3 days since my friends had apparently decided I was public entertainment. How does it feel? Mia asked. How does what feel? Being disgustingly happy. I hated that she was right. Again. Unfortunately, I was happy. Annoyingly happy. Embarrassingly happy. The kind of happy that made random songs sound better. The kind that made mornings easier. The kind that appeared every time Lucas smiled at me. Which was often. Very often. The problem was that Lucas knew exactly what he was doing. And he enjoyed it. Far too much. Case in point, I walked into the library that afternoon and immediately spotted him. Lucas looked up. His face brightened. Then he smiled. That smile. The one that should honestly be illegal. My brain stopped working. Immediately, Lucas noticed. Of course he noticed. Hi, Ethan. I narrowed my eyes. No. No what? Whatever you're doing. Lucas looked innocent. A performance worthy of an award. I have no idea what you're talking about. Liar. He laughed. I sat across from him, trying very hard to act normal, failing spectacularly. Lucas leaned forward slightly. You're blushing. I hate you. No, you don't. The confidence, the audacity, the fact that he was completely correct. I buried my face in my hands. Lucas looked delighted. You're having way too much fun. I really am. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. An hour later, we left the library together. The sun was beginning to set. Students crossed campus around us. The evening air was cool, comfortable. For once, neither of us felt the need to fill the silence. We simply walked, side by side, like we always did. Only now there was no pretending, no excuses, no fake relationship, just us. The thought made me smile. Lucas noticed immediately. What's that look for? What look? That one. Very specific. Very suspicious. I shrugged. Nothing. You're a terrible liar. Learned from the best. Lucas gasped dramatically. I am deeply offended. You'll survive. Maybe. His shoulder bumped mine lightly. A simple touch. Yet somehow it felt different now. Warmer. More intentional. We reached a quiet path near the edge of campus. The crowd had mostly disappeared. The evening light painted everything gold. Lucas stopped walking. I stopped too. What? For a moment he just looked at me. Not speaking. Not teasing. Just looking. And suddenly my heart started doing that thing again. The thing it always did around him. The thing I was beginning to suspect would never stop. Lucas smiled. Smaller this time. Softer. You know, he said. For a smart athlete, you're remarkably slow. I groaned. There it is. There what is? The bullying. It's affectionate bullying. That's not better. It absolutely is. I laughed despite myself. Lucas looked pleased. Then his expression softened. Just a little. And suddenly the teasing faded away. The thing it always did around him. The thing I was beginning to suspect would never stop. Lucas smiled. Smaller this time. Softer. You know, he said. For a smart athlete, you're remarkably slow. I groaned. There it is. There what is? The bullying. It's affectionate bullying. That's not better. It absolutely is. I laughed despite myself. Lucas looked pleased. Then his expression softened. Just a little. And suddenly the teasing faded away, leaving something quieter. Something real. I like you, Ethan. The words caught me completely off guard. Not because I didn't know, but because hearing them still felt incredible. My chest tightened. In the best possible way. A smile pulled at my mouth. I like you too. Good. 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 I laughed. Lucas laughed too. For a second, neither of us looked away. The world seemed strangely quiet, like everything else had stepped back, leaving only this moment. Only him. Lucas glanced at my mouth, then back to my eyes. My pulse immediately doubled. You're staring again. His voice was barely above a whisper. I smiled. Maybe. Lucas took one step closer. The distance between us disappeared. My heart was officially useless now. Still nervous? He asked. A little. Good. What does that mean? His smile returned. Playful. Dangerous. It means this is my favorite version of you. I opened my mouth, then closed it, because honestly, I had no response to that. Lucas looked entirely too satisfied. Then, before he could say anything else ridiculous, I reached for him. His surprise lasted less than a second. Then he smiled and met me halfway. The kiss was soft, warm, gentle enough to make my chest ache. The kind of kiss that felt less like fireworks and more like finally arriving somewhere you'd been trying to reach for a long time. When we pulled apart, neither of us moved very far. Lucas was still smiling. Of course he was. Wow! I narrowed my eyes. What? Nothing. Lucas. His grin widened. You were the one who asked me to fake date you. I groaned immediately. No. Oh yes. Don't start. You literally tricked yourself into falling for me. I did not trick myself. You absolutely did. Pointed at him. You are never letting that go, are you? Not a chance. I sighed dramatically. Lucas laughed, then slipped his hand into mine. Simple, easy, natural, like it had always belonged there. And as we started walking again, listening to his laughter and feeling his hand in mine, I realized something important. The fake relationship had been a disaster. The plan had failed completely, and somehow it had led me exactly where I wanted to be. Beside Lucas. Officially. Finally. For real. The end. Before you leave, Lucas stole Ethan's heart. The least you can do is steal the subscribe button. One click. No fake dating contract required. Subscribe for more BL stories.